Hello, and welcome back once again to the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. We've got most of the usual crew here today. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, I have Josh Torres.
Hi, hello.
Welcome back, Adam Vitale.
Hello.
James Galizio.
120 hours wasted.
And Chow Min Woo.
Savage is fun.
George is in the middle of moving, and I empathize because I was just there a few months ago. So hopefully we'll see him next week to talk about his wonderful time with Guardians of the Galaxy, the biggest RPG release of the week. There's no competition, no other game released this week that we have any interest in.
So I guess there's a preliminary apology this week because we don't have George on for the Guardians talk because no one else has played Guardians except him here.
So this week was kind of like a week we were looking forward to because we had a handful of games that I think we outlined in the last podcast that were all releasing within a few days of each other. Guardians of the Galaxy was one of them. You know, obviously no one here has played it but George. That's why we're lamenting his absence. But it seems to have decent word of mouth, and I am interested to see what his thoughts are on it. He does have a review up on the site, which we'll get into later. Also released this week was Undernaut's Labyrinth and Yomi. I don't remember what the title is, but we were planning to having one of our staff members look at that, but it had a very late PC delay, so just some shenanigans there prevented that from being looked at. We have another staff member looking at Voice of Cards, the Yoko Taro project with Square Enix. That is something that we'll be looking forward to. So finally, we get to the last one on the list, and that is, of course, Super Robot Wars 30. So we've talked
priority.
About this. Yes. No, I was
I'm just kidding.
I was just getting the other three out of the way because there's different excuses that we have for all of those. We're not going to be talking about any of them for different reasons. But we will be talking about Super Robot Wars 30 because it did release without major issue. And we did have actually someone here who has played it. And that is you. So
I just get a Monopoly episode. Sweet. Awesome. Everything's been shoved out of the way for the one important game of the week. I've been looking forward to this new Super Robot Wars surprise for many months. I have logged almost 40 hours at this point in the game.
Wait, remind me when this game released.
It released on technically Thursday, but then my digital unlock on console was unlocked Wednesday morning. So we're like about 2 to 3 days in.
Yeah, we're recording this on mid-Saturday for those listening.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's hard to... I don't even know how far I am in, to be honest. I have no idea if I'm like, am I almost halfway? Am I halfway? I'm not sure. So, for people who don't know, Super Robot Wars, very long-running series. The 30 in its name is not because it's the 30th game in the series. It's on 30 because it's the series' 30th anniversary, and to celebrate, it's like the first Super Robot Wars game with licensed IPs like Gundam, Mazinger, Getter Robo, and like more recent anime like Gridman, Gundam Narrative and whatnot. Like, it has all those licensed shows. This is the first one of those that got released globally, all over the world. It's not just the Southeast Asia exclusive deal with the English versions. But the caveat is it's only available outside of the Southeast Asia and Japan on just Steam only for the West, essentially. Which is fine. A lot of people seem to enjoy, it's been out for a few days now, and it's gotten really, really, really great reviews on Steam, and also just a lot of places have been strangely selling out of keys for this game as well. So I really wonder what the sales numbers are gonna be for this game once the dust settles. But
I don't know how much importance to put on this, but we were comparing because they released very close to each other. Guardians of the Galaxy versus Super Robot Wars 30 on Steam, and Guardians of the Galaxy peaked at under 10K consecutive players or concurrent players, and Super Robot Wars is at 16K. So there, math tells us that Super Robot Wars 30 is doing better than Guardians of the Galaxy. Totally no room for interpretation there.
Yeah, that's not because the SRW 3030 is only exclusive on Steam in the West, for easy, buying.
These are unneeded details.
Yep, that's right. That's true. But also the Famitsu says another story and put 2 points less on SRW than Guardians and their weird
and
review
they're the
system.
arbiters. What they say
it's
is
true. Yeah, everyone trusts Famitsu, right? Yeah, this game is a very, very different in structure to previous SRW games. It's using like a choose your own adventure non-linear structure, which hasn't been in the series since I don't even know. MX was like on PSP and maybe PS2 also, I think. Impact was before that. Like there's only been very, very few games in the series which has done this non-linear structure where they give you a list of missions and then there are let's say there's like 10 missions on the list, and then each of the missions will either give you a new robot and character that joins your party, or it could give one of your robots a new skill or attack, or just or something like a nice goofy story behind it and whatnot. While in two of those missions on that list of 10 is start, and those are the main important missions to progress. So if you just want to mainline the story as fast as you can just go for those as well. But unlike in most other SRW games where it's just a linear path where you're going from stage to stage to stage to stage, and then occasionally you'll have a split branching path of hey, do you want to go take your crew to space, or you want to stay on Earth and whatnot, and then you have a branching path in that linear structure, but then it'll be a list of 3 stages in that path, and then they'll all come together again. So it's just a major.
This is a weird comparison, but the way you describe this, the game that comes to my mind, let me know if this is a valid comparison or not, is Valkyria Chronicles 2. Because it had a lot of that mission-based sort of here is the primary objective, but then you have all of these side objectives where you revisit old maps, or you go through with special conditions, and I'm sure there's a lot of other similarly comparable games.
Kind of, but all the other, these other ones, they're technically side missions, but they're all unique. They all have different stuff going on. They're not revisiting stages.
Oh,
on
okay.
it. There is content in the game where you do I guess I'll explain that when I get to it. But there is some generic stages, so to speak. But I'll get to that. So in this game, it's very much if you're into strategy RPGs, you'll like it. When I compare it, it's not so much a Fire Emblem. But to people who have that as a main focal point, it's much more systems heavy, in the sense that you have more considerations. You don't have a weapon triangle. You have classic categories of robots and what they can do. So let's say
it's like Final Fantasy Tactics.
A little bit, yeah.
I feel we gotta improve our vocabulary. Whenever we talk about strategy games, the 2 games we bring up are Final Fantasy Tactics or Fire Emblem. Is it more of one or more of the other?
I was joking.
I know. Maybe what we gotta do is start comparing games to Super Robot Wars.
Well, maybe what we should do is to get some of you other guys to play Utuada Drumono, so I'm not the only one on the site that's played them.
I'd rather play.
Hey, I have played Other Side. I have played Fate Tactics. I have played Summon Night, and I have played.
Look at this
God
guy.
Wars. So I'm pretty good.
I played a shitload of strategy RPGs, and it's one of those things that's it's just Super Robot Wars is hard to describe because it uses such a weird system that it isn't really comparable to a lot of other strategy RPGs. So for example, the classifications of its robots. Let's take Gundam and Mazinger, for example. These are 2 very old series, but they're very recognizable. Gundam uses actual ammo based weapons. It has laser weapons as well, beam rifles and whatnot. Sometimes it has a hyper bazooka, and then that'll take ammo and whatnot. So these more smaller robots that are not necessarily our size, but somewhat bigger and more nimble compared to like other series like Mazinger, which are like huge and bulky. Like those are classified as real robots in that series, and things like Mazinger who use like energy that's like kind of like like it has like it's like magic almost, where you just there's no rhyme or reason behind like photon energy that Mazinger uses. It's kind of just like it shoots out beams of energy. Those are called like super robots and whatnot because they're bigger, they're bulkier, they have more armor and whatnot. So that's kind of like the main two categories of robots that you've always had in Super Robot Wars. Is this a real robot or are they a super robot? And super robots like don't dodge well but are more tankier because of their armor, while like real robots have less armor, so if they get hit it'll hurt but they have more evasion and are more mobile.
I need a grounding point. Like
okay.
The classic Amuro Gundam. This the Gundam.
Okay.
What type of robot is that?
That is a real robot because it actually uses like ammo for its weaponry. Like your beam rifle shots, like they take up ammo, or like like you only have a certain amount of shots, or like your hyper bazooka, you only have a certain amount of shots. So usually they are more ammo based, but the real thing that separates them is like they have less armor, but they're more mobile. While like things like Mazinger and Getter Robo, they're like bigger, and like use a lot of like energy based weapons that are kind of like magic almost. Like there's like no rhyme and reason. It's just like they're spewing like cool stuff that makes the enemies go blow up. Like just like in your typical fucking really old shows from your childhood.
What's that show? What's that show where the robots surf?
Eureka 7.
Yeah. Well, okay. What are those?
Oh my god! I think they're classified as real robots, if I remember right, because they're more nimble, more agile.
I'm taking away from this is that Gundams are real.
Yes, okay. Gundams are real. I mean, you've seen they have like a statue of the Gundam, like life size in Japan. So yes,
it'll activate when
they've made it walk.
Hits
made it walk. So yes, they're real. And then each of these robots in the game, they have like two main classifications of attack, which are ranged attacks or melee attacks and whatnot. So that's pretty self-explanatory to itself. And then you get into the nitty-gritty of like, so when they try to combine shows from different IPs, they kind of have to consider like what are their like in-series, in-universe traits, and how do we translate that into like the universal SRW system. So let's say Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans, for example. Like in that world, the armor on like mobile suits in them, they're very resistant to beams. Like if you try to fire a beam rifle at them, it'll do nothing to the armor. I forgot what the technology was called. It's like nano laminate armor, I think. But how that would translate in like SRW obviously is like, okay, so they're more resistant to beams. So like if you try to shoot beam weaponry at them, like a Gundam, like a beam rifle at them, like it'll do severely reduced damage. So that's how they would like portray it in there. So they have like barriers and stuff that are just kind of like innate to those kinds of mobile suits, because that's how it's represented in the series and whatnot. So you have all those other things to consider in this RPG series and whatnot. And like it's not like so punishing that like, oh shit, I like didn't consider this, I'm immediately dead. It's not like that. It can be if you don't really take the hints, but So and in this game, one of the big changes as well, aside from just its structure, this nonlinear structure, is they don't have the SR point or the Super Robot point system in this game, which was very prevalent in like the entire series. And these are a series of like challenge objectives in like stages that you would encounter. So let's say you go to the stage, there's like a bunch of like enemies. Let's say there's like 25 to 30 enemies, and like the SR point for that stage or SR objective would be defeat this entire map in 5 turns and whatnot. And then if you beat that, you get an SR point. But if you don't, then you don't. And what that would do is it would dictate like your difficulty in the game, whether like it would, like say you accrue like 7 SR points in a row very early on, that'll bump you up to hard mode for the game. And it was valuable accruing these if you wanted to, because like there would usually be like a true ending to these games, and be like, oh, to access this true ending, you need to have like these certain prerequisites of like you need to have like done these events in certain stages with certain characters, plus you need to have an SR point of this much to access the true ending route and like it'll present you a choice and whatnot to go embark on that. But they've scrapped it for here, so there's no SR points at any stages at SRW30. So you're for main stages, you can kind of go about it the way you want. You're not so much pressured to like, oh shit, I have to, think about how am I going to clear this map efficiently if I'm on a time limit, or if I have to like beat this enemy at a certain HP threshold before it retreats and whatnot, because that could be an objective. But that it doesn't have that in this game. Instead, what you have for these, instead of challenge objectives, you have these other missions to the side called relic missions. And these could be called like Relic of Blade, Relic of the Shot, Relic of Aegis, and whatnot. And they're basically like mini challenge stages. So let's say like Relic of Steel. You can only deploy like say a maximum of 3 characters on the field, and then you'll have like these 4 enemies, and then you have like one of these 4 enemies is like kind of like a beefy boss enemy, and it's like, okay, the context around it is like this enemy is about to self-destruct and explode and do a lot of damage to the surrounding area. We need you to subdue it in one attack, and if you or else it'll go haywire and whatnot. So now your mission in the stage is like, just with these 3 robots alone, defeat this enemy, this main boss enemy, in one attack. And you have to kind of think about, okay, which robots are strong enough to do that in one attack, and then you have like different like character abilities which you can upgrade or like give like skill programs to pilots, where like you can have support attack or attack again and whatnot. So like when you're attacking and you're adjacent to another ally, they'll have an ability to like support and follow up your attack and whatnot.
It almost becomes like a puzzle game at that point.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's really cool because like modern SRW design, like a lot of the like it hasn't been like too challenging, like because it's easy to get like pretty overpowered really fast if you know what you're doing. While in this one, it's like it makes you think a little bit of like, okay, like I'm playing on expert mode, and like it's been really fun because it's like it's both challenging but like not unfairly challenging. It's like, okay, you're really respecting like random runs across the field, but now in these challenge missions, you really push to the limit of like how much do I upgrade like robots to like do enough damage, but I don't like incur so much of a money cost in like upgrading them? Which like optional parts am I going to use to like leverage like how am I going to get access to their strongest attacks? Because in the series, everyone has like their big cool ultimate attack and whatnot, especially like the older shows that have like really really like strong like attacks like Getter Beam or like the Mazinger or Great Mazinger's Thunder Break and whatnot. But in order to access these strongest attacks, you don't get them like they're not immediately accessible when you deploy. You have to raise a stat on pilots called morale throughout the course of battle, and like as they're taking damage, as they're dealing hits, as they're taking out enemies, their morale is gradually raising. But then, so like they eventually get access to their strongest attacks in the course of battle. But in these puzzle stages, they kind of need access to it right away. So there'll be like optional parts you can give them, and like skills that they like learn when they level up of raising that morale, like in the in the beginning of battle, so they have access to it right away when you need it the most. So and then like there's like different like objectives for these challenge relic missions, like relic restoration. You have to defend the zone. If any enemies go into the zone, you lose the mission. And then they're all bum rushing you. They're not even like attacking you. So you can't even get a counter attack. They're just like focused on like bum rushing it as fast as they can. So you have to think about like things like that.
So it's almost like you need to have like different loadouts of depending on what the objective is, whether it's defending a barrier or needing to take down a specific target in as few hits as possible, or if it's a more standard like route sort of objective. I guess a lot of times whenever I'm playing a strategy game, whether it's Fate Tactics or the other two, we always go back to Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics. One thing that I always, whenever I have to review those or grade those, or even if I'm just thinking about how much I enjoy those, is how much variety is there? Because one of the things that I think, and you can tell me after I say this whether you think Super Robot Wars does this well or not, is I don't like when a game is packed with full of different like objectives or side missions or challenges, but you can kind of just roll out your same favorite 10 units and clear it every time, and you never have to adjust your strategy because you never expected to.
I mean, to some extent, like, yes, that, like, you know, if you want to do like the main content and like a bunch of the side content, like, if you just want to stick with your favorites and upgrade them to max and whatnot and just get them all out and be super crazy powerful, you can, because ultimately SRW is like a celebration of like the mecha genre. You know, it's never, like, for a long while, it hasn't really pushed players to like make like crazy tough decisions of like, oh, I have to really think about who I want to roll out for this, even though it might be like series I don't care about or I don't like. You know, there might be only people who play this game and like the only things I care about is like Gridman, Ray Earth, and Code Geass, you know, and I don't care about any other series, you know, and the game has to cater to those people of like the, you know, that they don't want to really engage in any of the other series featured. Yeah, so for them, this is that's just something they want to do because that's, you know, how they chose to approach the game. Of all, you know, other people could be like, you know what, I don't want any main characters in my team. I only want side characters. You know, so like the game is usually good about like, if you don't want to choose like the main character of Knights and Magic like Ernie, you can use the siblings Addie and Kid. You know, you can have them on their team instead of using the main character because who cares about main characters? Or like instead of like Camille from Zeta Gundam, you're just like, okay, I don't care about Camille, but I like Fa, you know, so you can use Fa instead of Camille and just field her and don't have to worry about Camille.
Yeah, there is something to be said about having that sort of flexibility as well. I haven't done it in a while, but I would sometimes when I played those like GBA era Fire Emblem games, I would be like, I'm only going to use mage units, not for any other reason other than I want to see how that turns out, or I only want to use pre-promoted units because I want it to be challenging. Yes, I know I could make it easier for myself by picking the best characters or whatever, but I don't want to. I want to make arbitrary decisions, whether it's like I like the design of this robot more or whatever. On a similar front, let's say you're someone like me, and I've seen a smattering of Gundams. I've seen Eureka 7. I've seen Gurren Lagann. I haven't seen 90% of the other shows. Would you say that if I'm a fan of strategy RPGs, like there's still enough there in Super Robot Wars 30 to be worth checking out?
I think so. I mean, it's interesting because, you know, for a good portion of SRW's audience, you know, they're not like people who like watch every single series and whatnot on the list. In some respects, you know, SRW is sort of a catalyst of like, man, I really like the characters in this game. I really want to like know about like the series they're from. You know, like Elgheim, for example. It's a very old mid '80s Homino show. You know, but there are some like people who will like go into this game and be like, man, that robot Elgheim is really cool, and I really like the cast. Like, you have like this '80s crazy hairstyle thing going on and whatnot, and like they're likable enough, and it makes you interested. It's like, okay, I wanna seek this out because I want to know more about these characters. So in that respect, like for a lot of SRW's audience, they kind of use those games as sort of like a springboard of like, I want to check this series out because
I actually did that, to be honest, Josh. I actually did that with Erica 7 and Super Robot Wars Z. I was like, wow, this robot's so cool. They got a surfboard and all this crap. That's how I discovered the anime, actually.
Yeah, you know, and that's it's always been the cool thing about this series of like, it's like a dual sort of a relationship where you can come into it and like know most of the series or all the series and like get a like appreciation of it that way, like how they represented, how like, you know, what crossover interactions they have, and like, you know, oh, that really makes a lot of sense. Like, you know, the Code Geass latest movie crosses over with like another series I won't spoil, and like I really like, you know, both of those series, and like the way that they debuted together was really, it really spoke to me. But like how Chow here is like, you can also come into it like knowing nothing and coming away with it being like, okay, I want to check this out because that was really cool what that game showed. It just kind of not a lot of series can do that, obviously. Like SRW is like in this weird, unique space. Like the closest it comes, it's like the closest rivals really is like the G Generation series, which is like, but that's all Gundam,
though.
Yeah, so you're really confined here. While this one branches off into other series. But it's interesting what they've done as well in 30 in terms of like battle choreography and animation. Because I'm sure to a lot of people, even people who don't play these games, like I know a friend who's like, I don't play SRW games, but I just, whenever a new one comes out, I just go on YouTube and watch the animations, because that's what the series has been known for. Like just beautiful sprite work on like battle animations for like iconic attacks for robots, like, Gridman's grid beam. Yeah, the Gundam's like beam rifle shot, like the iconic like pose before it shoots. It like for me like a series that came out in 2013, 2014, Majestic Prince. This is like its debut game for console SRW. It was like back in like it first showed up like in the mobile game that's now defunct, but like this is like one of the series. It's like one of the main pillars here, and like the way this game does it justice. It's beautiful. All these attacks that they've done for this whole 5-unit team, and it's interesting because the way they've done battle choreography this time around is there's a lot of dynamic intros that play instead of like the usual SRW. Enemy is facing left. No, your player unit is facing left, and enemy unit is facing right, and they kind of have like these standby idle poses before they do the attack. So like you enter an attack, and they have like this standby like stand pose, and then they'll like animate into the attack and do it. While in this one, a lot of units have like dynamic like intros where like I do an attack with like a Majestic Prince unit like Red 5, and like his like as he enters the scene, he's entering the scene while like flying diagonally, zigzagging through shots, like in the middle of a battlefield before it like flies off and does its attack. So it gives it more of like a more active like feeling instead of like just standing there and then animating to its attack. It took a while for me to get used to it at first because this is clearly like an experiment for them leaning into this direction. So like a byproduct of this is you kind of have like these weird black transitions in the middle of combat, like when it's like switching from like an enemy's turn to like a player's turn, where like an enemy finishes its attack after it's like after it finishes its attack, it has to like do a black transition into like the player's like dynamic intro for that to play before it does its attack and whatnot. While in like older games, it like you'd have the enemy do an attack and then it'll just do a direct cut with no black transition into the unit, and then like there would be like, and then it would just do its standard like attack animation from there and whatnot. So I'm interested to see how they adapt that, because clearly I do like this direction that they're going for. Obviously, there's still some work that needs to be done to make it more fluid in that transition. If you know what I mean. It's hard to like talk about this and like without video and whatnot. But
basically, it sounds like they're trying to avoid having like a default stance that the artwork will always like go back to between like attack animations, where it might seem like too mechanical, too like just rigid.
Yeah. So and you'll still have those idle stances like when you're defending or evading and whatnot. So you'll still see them there. But it's really cool. It's really cool what they're trying to do here. They're clearly trying to like get like it's like much like the Tales series, where like the Tales series has a formula, and like they're taking small baby steps to like kind of modernize it, make it more dynamic and like more just something that'll like really wow the audience in the modern age. SRW is doing that too, and like it's taking like steps to really switch it up, and that's I admire that. I mean, and other than that, like it's just been a blast to play. You know, I'm not gonna say that like SRW is for everyone, but it's a very open, accessible like series that you know, even if it has like a beginner mode, if like you're kind of scared, that you can always bump the difficulty up and down mid in intermission screens, like in between stages and whatnot, if it's too much for you. So I know a lot of people, this is gonna be their first SRW game. That's really cool to see. You know, obviously take it at your own pace, play however you like, use whoever you want and whatnot, because the game accommodates that. It's not going to punish you for like that not picking optimally. And it's just like it's a seems like a big game. You know, like I said, due to the structure, I I have no sense of like how far I am to the game because like of this non-linear structure, and that's kind of exciting to know. Like I don't know how far I am in. I guess one thing I want to bring up too before I, you know, send my piece about it is they also have this main original battleship for the game that's like fucking huge. It's like it spans like 2 kilometers wide or something. You can actually like upgrade facilities of that battleship as well. So as you're playing through missions, you get these things called like I think mission points. I forgot what it was called. I think it's mission points. Where you can upgrade like different facilities of your battleship, like communications or like the mess hall or the artillery weaponry or you know, or like the engine and whatnot. And this will like do like different things for like your entire party. So like for example, if you upgrade communications on this battleship, it's called like Dice Drager or whatever. It's like combined like it has like this weird like German like I forgot what the actual full German name of it was called, but then like cut pieces of it out and like put it together to make the name. So I'm not even gonna try to remember it.
I remember we talked about this because I remember Kite was who translated a lot of the news for this, was trying to figure out like the source of how the name that they came up with.
Yeah. And it's weird. I don't know. That's weird. So yeah, let's say you upgrades communications, and as you're upgrading the communications line for this battleship, it'll upgrade the commander's command skill on the field. And like the command skill is basically within like 2 to 3 tiles of her, that she'll give buffs to like anyone who's standing in those tiles around her. So like she'll give like plus 10% accuracy, plus 10% evasion and whatnot. And then you can like add on to those bonuses and like expand that range of that command skill as you're filling out that command line on that battleship. Or for example, if you upgrade like
Dry Streger.
Yep.
Dry Streger. All right, that's the name. Now I'm trying to figure out like the etymology of it or whatever.
They show it in a trailer. I forgot, but I think it's like in the first trailer and whatnot. Like if you upgrade the lab, for example, which is like really valuable, you can like get more money as you like take down enemies and get more pilot experience as you take down enemies, and then eventually you'll unlock like an optional part that you can like equip where you can like cast like a spell on like your entire on everyone at once that gives them like these skills that will give them double money and double experience the next time they take down an enemy and whatnot. And that's a good way to like kind of just grind up those organically. So like there's this really cool like bit like progression mechanic in between missions of like you upgrading your ship and either like prioritizing like buffs for like your entire party or like making the ship stronger or making it better so you accrue more resources easier. So it has that dynamic to it as well. And then in this nonlinear structure, you're like choosing stages like both on like around the world. Like you can go to like Africa, there'll be some stages in Africa, or there'll be like some stages in China, or some stages in Southeast Asia, or even in North America. And then you can choose stages out of Earth, like in the surrounding solar system, like be an asteroid belt nearby, or on Jupiter, or on Mars. And then at a certain point, you can go even further, like than the solar system and whatnot. It's like, all right, we're just fucking crazy now. So, yeah, I'm really having a lot of fun with it. I don't know if I'm gonna beat it this week. I'm gonna try to, but it seems to be a very long game. It's I'm scared because this game is only going to get bigger with its DLC packs. Like with the first one,
Yeah, we
Soccer
talked about
Awards
that
coming
last
in.
week with
Yeah,
Soccer Wars being the headliner of that one.
yeah, and then they recently announced who's coming in the second DLC pack. In the second DLC pack for Super Robot Wars 30, they announced that Mobile Suit Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans will make its console debut here, and then that'll have Mikazuki with his Barbados Lupus Rex. We'll have the Yujin Rebake Full City, the Bale, and the Floros from that show. They also announced the Super Robot Wars OG characters coming to that DLC pack as well, which is Kyosuke with his Al Tyson Rias and Excellent with her Ride Waste Ritter. And then those staves will only speak to people who played the OG series of these games. They're essentially the main protagonist of the first original generation game that came to Game Boy Advance, I think. Because in that game you had to pick between either Kyosuke or Ryusei for the characters you wanted to choose in that game. So for people who like those characters, I really like that team, the ATX team. They're going to be in the DLC pack too. They also announced that for the first time, and this one's crazy, they're bringing Ultraman to Super Robot Wars 30. I don't know if it's only robots anymore. They've been adding a lot more battleships and now tokusatsu characters. So Ultraman will be making his debut in DLC Pack 2. This is based on obviously Ultraman goes way back to, man, I don't even know what year, 70s, late 70s, early 80s. But this will be taking the designs from the recent Netflix CG anime.
Google tells me 1966 TV series.
Okay, wow. I was almost there. So almost there. Yeah, this will have Ultraman, Seven, and Ace from there. So that's really crazy to see. So I mean, Gridman was already a stretch. It's like, oh well, I guess Gridman's kind of mechanical in the new TV anime adaptations a little bit, but Ultraman is straight up like they're not like people in suits like originally. Like in the Netflix show adaptation, they're like in power suits, I guess. So that's crazy to see. That's,
yeah, when I'm looking at like the Netflix page for it now, and I'm just thinking like Power Rangers, which of course is a silly comparison because that's all just borrowed from Super Sentai.
Yep, and that's it. Like, you know, Power Rangers, like Super Sentai has shown up in Super Robot Wars with the Cross Omega mobile game. Like they did collaborations. You saw like, you know, the Red Ranger in it and whatnot, and story interactions.
Is the of course in my stupid Western brain, like I always just think of like the Western terms. Like, is the Megazord in any Super Robot Wars game? Oh, it is.
Yeah, it was in the Megazord and that Cross Omega mobile game, the collaboration with it. So yes, the Megazord has shown up. I don't know if they dare to try to do that for a worldwide release, like that and Transformers. Who knows? Godspeed if they try to do that, because they have to go through Saban and all that. But I think it's still Saban that holds the copyright. I forgot. But yeah, that's still a lot to say about Super Robot Wars 30. I'll continue to play it. I've been really enjoying it. Been really impressed. You know, it's not without its flaws. It still has like usual SRW problems which has been always a thing. Like in SRW, where like some series are the golden children, and some series are like, yeah, you know, they're cool, but they obviously are not the focus. Like Knights and Magic here, for example, like it's their debut game, but you know they're pretty light on like how they represent that series, which is sort of a bummer. But I get it. Who knows, man? I'll probably have more to say, like, you know, as I progress.
And ahead of the of you actually getting your hands on it, you did put together kind of a wish list of stuff that now that we know that they're adding different series through DLC, and obviously there a lot of new series are making their debuts in Super Robot Wars 30. You just kind of said, like, if everything was on the table, what would you like to have show up in Super Robot Wars? And you had a very thorough list of a bunch of different sorts of properties. And the only two I'm going to call out that you put up on the site is you did put in Iron-Blooded Orphans as something you'd like to see in Super Robot Wars the day before that we learned that it was coming in the second DLC.
Yeah.
You did also put Armored Core, which is actually a series that I've played a few games of. So I'm already like thinking like, oh, that's kind of out of the box, because who knows when we'll ever actually see anything officially Armored Core again. So that's a nice thought.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I just thought your list was very creative, and I'll be honest and say I don't know half the IPs mentioned, but there was a lot of discussion underneath it and on our social page for people talking about what they like to see, what they saw at the top of the list, how they would order the list.
Yep, it's just a silly little thing that I'm glad people liked it, and it sparked a lot of discussion, and yeah.
Oh, Eureka 7's on here,
right?
Yeah.
Well,
I brought that
go.
up that up without realizing that it was on here.
Before someone complains, I think it is technically pronounced Eureka 7.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's just my my gringo accent.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
If you're just reading it, yeah, whatever.
I can't pronounce. It's like people who don't pronounce atelier as atelier every time they say atelier.
That's me.
French.
I feel called out.
So tomato, I guess maybe.
You brought this up in passing in your discussion of Super Robot Wars. You brought about how it was messing with kind of like the traditions of how it dealt with its animation, and then you compared it to the Tales series and how it's kind of also, with the release of this year's Tales of Arise, trying to like identify where it wants to push and change and shift where its series has been compared to the when it was back a few years ago, when it was an annualized franchise and it was very formulaic and very you knew what you were getting with every entry. Obviously, we talked about Tales of Arise a lot when it released back in September. I have just recently started it, and I don't want to just like rehash all of the discussions that we had back then. But I just figured I'd just take my 5 minutes to give my initial impression, because I wanted to basically play through this because it is a major release of the year. We're really starting to look ahead to identifying what's going to end up on our end of the year lists, both of our personal lists and the site list for RPGsite.net. And I couldn't just leave this one unplayed because it would be kind of a big omission, I feel. My take, I put in about 20 hours. I've gotten the full cast. I've kind of just now like pushing past the point where it's like we've established the roster. I've got all the 6 party members, and the framework of the story is well established. I will just say that one thing that Adam brought up back when we were discussing this, and it seems very superficial, but I think it's true, is that I really just do appreciate how fluid and how modern the game feels. Just in terms of like production values, in terms of art, in terms of graphics, even in terms of like sound design. Because after having played not all of the games that were released between like 2010, 2015, but a handful of them, and how they all felt really samey, they all felt kind of stiff, they all had like the similar limitations, to see Tales of Arise kind of go past some of those, I thought was really kind of something the series needed as like a shot in the arm. I will say, though, that the story is kind of leaving me wanting in terms of like character interactions, in terms of like motivation, in terms of dialogue. When you get the last 2 party members, it just felt very contrived to me. I was actually streaming it on Discord, and Adam was like witnessing like my reaction in real time, and I'm just like, what? I don't understand this. So anyone who's played the game, I'm talking about right before you recruit Kisara and Dohalim, the events that lead up to that, I just thought were very kind of
You're gonna see another bit of melodrama in the next city.
Oh boy, I'm excited for you, Brian.
I'm always kind of been like a gameplay over story person anyway. So like basically what I mean by that is this is not how I think about games. That's just how I'm gonna describe it. Like I wouldn't dock as many points, but like I don't need it to be like a sterling, excellent, well-crafted narrative. I just need something to hold my interest. And then I'm more interested in the gameplay front, which I think Tales of Arise actually does really well. I just recently unlocked like being able to access double the number of arts, and getting a lot of real elemental play because I have like weapons or specific abilities that augment certain elements, and actually using that to identify enemies that are weak or resistant to certain ones. So I'm having a lot of fun on that front. And then there was another it just kind of feels like when I read like the interactions in the skits or between cutscenes, like an early high schooler's idea of what is deep or meaningful, because there were times where it's like, so one of the premise of the game is that Alphen was a slave and now he's trying to break free from that. That's break free, I think, was kind of like the way they originally worded, like when they first revealed this game on wherever they revealed it. And it was like, what does it mean to be free? You have to make your own choices and live with the consequences. And it was just like so like threadbare, where I'm like, gee, this is too deep for me. I don't know. It just felt like there wasn't any meat to it. It just felt like the game thought it was more illuminating than it actually was. So that's unfortunate, but it doesn't really like bother me that much. It's like, I wish it was better, but it is what it is. But I do like, it's been a while since I played like a traditional JRPG quite like this. So it's kind of like comfort food. Like, yeah, I feel this. I'm transported to like teenage me playing Tales of the Abyss or whatever. Like there's still enough there where it's like, yeah, this is nostalgic. Yeah, this is comfort food. So I am enjoying that. And I do think that it will probably end up on my personal top 10 list, despite the shortcomings in storytelling and characterization. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know, like, not everyone here on site plays every game as it's in its release window. So I'm just now making my way to Tales of Arise a month and a half later or whenever. Enjoying it a fair bit. I wish as much effort went into improving the storytelling as improving like the presentation, but it's still, I think, a solid game. It's one that I could easily recommend for fans of JRPGs, but looking forward to seeing what further melodrama awaits me. I'll try to stream it in the chat so Adam can get my reaction in real time on that one as well.
I don't want to double down on this topic because we've already discussed Tales of Arise, and we'll discuss more of that. I was trying to give like a
really high level overview. I wasn't trying to like rehash, but yeah.
I do agree though that some of the theming in the game does feel kind of like basic in terms of, obviously it's like racism bad and slavery bad, and it just
it sounds like they've done every time in Tales games though. It's like, they always do a theme of racism. It's definitely not like 4 games.
It's not really race. Well, it's sort of racism in this case again, but it's just like it is pretty superficial in a way. I mean, obviously it's the right message, but it's just kind of like very simple and very digestible. It's kind of like, I wish there was a little bit a hook to
more
this,
nuance or something.
Yeah. So,
well, even like the premise of dual worlds or twinned worlds or duality has been used in this series like 3 prior times,
more than once. Yes.
So that's a little bit less about message and more just about like the setting. But still, that was like,
this is just X from Y again.
It like, yeah, Rise just definitely feels like the thing. It's like we just need to get this series back on track again after Berseria, and like and Berseria couldn't do it. So there's like, it's one of those things. It's like we just have to get this series back on track again, and then we can maybe think about like more improvements to the actual legacy of the series down the line. This is kind of like one of those things that's like, we just want something familiar for fans while making it a good playing game.
Yeah, and maybe it's like they know what their audience is. These are games built and designed for younger people, and maybe they don't want to break too free from that. And I'm okay saying like, all right, if that's the target audience, I'm going to like stretch my expectations a bit and allow it. That sounds kind of like
it's what was the first film in the newest trilogy of Star Wars films? The Force
Awakens.
Force Awakens.
Yeah. It's the Force Awakens of Tales.
Oh boy, is that the title? If Tales of Arise was we have some other more important, more relevant, more recent news topics that we're planning to get into than Tales of Arise. If that comparison had came up back in September, we should have used that. I like it. But yeah,
the title of this podcast is going to be Gundams Are Real.
Okay.
They are real. Just go to Japan.
Yeah, that's right.
And we were hoping to have some other people talk about Under the Knots, Labyrinth of Yomi, and maybe Voice of Cards this week. But as I mentioned, those are probably going to have to be put off for a week or so, depending on when we get access, depending on when the Under the Knots PC release ends up coming out. And obviously, people have time to actually dig into them. So we'll see. We did get a couple other. We mentioned some of these in passing when we were talking about George at the top of the podcast. He's not here to discuss Guardians of the Galaxy this week, but he did write up a review for it, and we hope to hear from him next week or the week after about his other thoughts. But if you want to read what he has written down for it, he did put that up on the website. He thought pretty highly of it. It seems like in general the game's gotten decent word of mouth, but I won't put words in his mouth, so we'll see either what he thinks of it when he comes on the podcast, or he can go ahead and give his review a read through.
So I was talking with George about this, and I edited his review, and this seems to be, not too far away from the general takeaway that I've seen for Guardians, but a lot of people really like the story and the character writing in Guardians of the Galaxy, it seems like, in terms of kind of an alternate take on these characters and how they are written and how the story is presented, which is, that's not too dissimilar. I feel like a lot of people like the campaign in Avengers as well, but this Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is completely single player linear experience. No, none of this loot farm treadmill stuff, whatever you want to call it, that Guardians or that Avengers has. It does seem like, maybe the level design and more gameplay elements of Guardians of the Galaxy are just kind of good enough. They're fine. But it seems like the highlight of Guardians of the Galaxy really is kind of the storytelling and characters, which, maybe that's exactly what people wanted for a game like this, especially coming off of Avengers. So it seems like it's gotten a pretty decent reception.
Yeah, it's amazing what it'll do to a game when you're not being pushed to make a games as a service game on the side.
Yeah, this game doesn't have to be a forever game. We don't have to design it in that cynical way. Unfortunately, I will probably never play this because I have no attachment at all to Guardians of the Galaxy. I couldn't even name the characters other than the raccoon, which I don't even remember his name, Rocket.
That reminds me of maybe a week ago. I was trying to I was like, maybe I should get this game. And I was talking to some friends. And I was I couldn't remember the main character. I was like, was it Star Killer? Star Killer. And
I think it's Star Walker.
Yeah,
I don't know. I never knew about them until their movies came out, so never even heard of the comic books.
It was a pretty somewhat niche comic book line before the movies really popularized it, for better or for worse. I liked our Guardians before the movies came out. I think this isn't the place to do it, but I just it's one of those things man, MCU movies really fucking killed the comic versions of characters.
We saw that with discount Avenger comments with the Avengers game, and even then, it's just kind of it's unfortunate, the right word. Any game that's built in that framework where it's Marvel's whatever, because we had that other XCOM that was announced that I don't remember. I don't remember what that was, because that game actually
Midnight
seemed pretty.
Suns?
Yes, that one I have no attachment to, but I think it's a style of game that I have just a higher affinity for. But I just wonder, all these Marvel games, it's kind of none of them, they all kind of exist on the other's reputation, regardless if they're completely different developers or completely different styles of games. Where Guardians of the Galaxy might be great, but because Avengers was so poorly received, it kind of has to overcome that reputation, even though it's not its fault. It's just tied to the IP.
It's also unfortunate. There's an unfortunate thing too for when Guardians was first revealed at E3, and it took up a shit ton of Square Enix's E3, and it rubbed people the wrong way. It's people had very different expectations for Square Enix's E3 than what Square Enix actually brought to E3, and it was a fucking 15-minute demo of Guardians. I was like, man, they could have just done this with a trailer or something.
I still think it's really weird that Square Enix did not show The World Ends With You at E3 at all. This game is coming out next month, and you're not this is the perfect time to advertise it. Even just from a cynical advertising standpoint, are you going to or not?
I'm not saying that that's the reason why Neo: The World Ends With You bombed, but it certainly didn't help. I feel like when it comes to the Guardians of the Galaxy and Marvel's Avengers stuff that people are talking about, I think one thing to remember is that you don't really see people being worried about Spider-Man 2 or the Wolverine game that Insomniac are making. I think realistically, because both Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers were being published by Square Enix, there's some leeway for people to worry that they're going to be treated in a similar way because it's a similar publisher. Well, it's the same publisher.
Yeah, that is a good point. So maybe they are more tethered than I was giving them credit for. But
but this should be the Guardians should be like the final game for Square Enix and Marvel currently with their current contract. I think it was just a 2-game type of deal with them.
They're probably glad they're out of this contract.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll renew it or not. I can't imagine they will, but who knows? Who knows?
I'm looking forward to Midnight Suns.
Yeah,
and I'm looking forward to George. I will get my enjoyment out of this game just to hear George's enjoyment of the game. I feel like that'll be enough for me to just vicariously experience it through him.
I mean, they've done a lot of like the right steps for this game, like that is a killer playlist that they have with all the licensed tracks in the game. Like that is,
it's great, but also, I mean, it's like, well, there is a streamer mode, so people can stream it.
Yeah, I mean,
there's none of the licensed music. It's also
that's obviously that's another battle that they can't fight. That's
it's not their fault. It's
definitely not their fault. And I would rather take this route, than like not having licensed music at all. Period, because they had to cater to streamers.
They do have like their own original like tracks from like an original band that they made as well. So I think that's cool.
Yeah.
In addition to the licensed stuff.
I'd rather take the unique soundtracks, because I feel like if you're using licensed music, it doesn't feel all that original, for me.
It depends on the setting.
Yeah, the Guardians is like Guardians, even in the comics, has always been catered to like 80s nostalgia. Just straight up.
For instance, if it's a quasi isekai and there's like this really brooding character, like he should listen to Limp Bizkit before
bullshit.
Yeah, but before angrily deciding he wants no part of this. Okay. And then the other, so that was all basically a tangent from. He's got a review up on the site. Go read it if you want. There's another review up on the site that I wrote, actually my first of the year. I feel like I've been slacking. I talked about it last week on the podcast. I finished Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous. I wrote up my thoughts pretty much verbatim, if you listen to last week's podcast, up into my review for that game. The high-level summary is that I think it's an excellent CRPG of that style, but brought down majorly by the number of kitchen sink type approaches in terms of like map systems, crusade systems, all that I feel like add nothing to the game and actually make it a worse experience. One person actually already commented on the review saying that he actually thought that those things were a boon to the experience. So obviously, that's a very valid opinion. I didn't think so. I still recommend it for fans of that style of RPG. I don't want to rehash everything I said last week, so that's up on the site. All right, so into the news section of the podcast, and we actually have a major headline that I'm not sure any of us expected. This
starting out with a banger.
What? Say that again.
We're starting out with a banger.
Yeah, it's like the last couple weeks have been like delay announcements, maybe a couple ports, a few things or more than a few things being announced for release in 2022. And there's more of those coming, spoiler warning. But we actually have an announcement of a new game in a long-running JRPG series, and that is Star Ocean: The Divine Force. So before I get into this, how many people here actually played Star Ocean Integrity and Faithlessness? Has anyone here played that?
Me, pick
me. You have played it? Woo!
Yeah, I only played the first 4. How's that?
Yeah, I played all of them except 5.
I have not played a single Star Ocean game. I should probably.
You're lucky. That. Holy shit!
Wow, that is
none of them are great. None of them are great. Not even 2. Not even 2. I'm saying
what?
Wow.
All right, let's talk about this announcement, and then we can go into Star Ocean in general. So yes, Star Ocean: The Divine Force was announced for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, and PC for next year. We got a pair of trailers, one in English, one in Japanese. basically giving the story premise and actually for an announcement trailer, a decent amount of gameplay, mainly because they're trying to highlight some of the things that they're basically marketing as a focus for this entry in the series. So we basically get introduced to a handful of characters, starting with a protagonist named Raymond. We have a secondary protagonist named Letitia, a few other characters. The trailer doesn't do a great job of selling what the story premise actually is. It kind of gives a little bit of a sense of like rebelling against the Federation, things like that. But then there was a PlayStation blog entry and a few, I think a website also got launched that kind of basically dived down into some of the details of the premise. But first of all, I guess I just want to, like, before we go into like the who's and what's, like, what did we think of the trailer? What did we think of the art? Let me hand it off to Adam, I suppose, out of a hat.
So one thing about like Star Ocean 3 was on PS2, so that was like an early 3D game, so it's kind of, acceptable or, fine. But also Star Ocean 4 is that I felt like the characters kind of looked like creepy dolls. And 5 I thought was a little better. I have not played 5, but based on what they showed, I don't think like the art translates well to the 3D models, and I almost feel like it's almost worse in 6 than it is in 5. They look kind of like it's the same artist. It's like the character design is the same person for Star Ocean 5 and 6. The art itself, like the 2D art that he drew, it looks fine. They look cool, but the character models in the game, though, especially when you compare them to like Tales of Arise, or any other like modern Japanese RPG, they just kind of look like they look like creepy dolls.
Just to assign a name really quickly, the character artist is Akira Yasuda. So just want to
Hakiman. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So look at like the models in the Star Ocean Anamnesis mobile game. Those are better than the fucking models that the model direction they use for the Last Hope and Integrity and Faithlessness, and now this game. I don't fucking get it. Of like, why did they just use like that art and design philosophy from that game and like put it into a mainline console?
Maybe
game?
That's a Squaresoft thing, or a Square Enix thing. The Final Fantasy Brave Exvius has better sprites than their pixel remasters.
I just don't get it. Like,
it's hard to explain what I mean. I guess by like creepy dolls. I guess it has to do with like maybe the shape and size of the heads and like how the eyes are placed on the heads or something. They just don't look like the proportions are off.
Like porcelain dolls, yeah. It's like you don't have to really go into the detail. Just look at it. It's like yeah.
It's actually kind of funny when this trailer was airing. Like, if the aesthetic didn't give it away, the character models definitely gave it away. Like, yep, this is Star Ocean. Like, I don't know if that's a good thing.
It was funny. I was watching that PlayStation Direct. It's like, oh, Square Enix. Oh, Tri-Ace. I wonder what this could be. It's like, is it? And then one look at the first character shows is like, yeah, it's Star Ocean. All right, checks out.
So the main character is Raymond. I don't remember if he got an actual age. He looks like he's like early 20s.
Very built. Ages. They didn't have ages yet.
Very built, very muscular guy, long hair, but his face,
big veins.
He's very varicose, whatever you want to call it. But his face, like in the 3D models, it almost looks like he's like a 14-year-old kid like playing pretend. Like his face just seems like it's too small or too young, and then it's attached to this like really built body. And it just looks really bad. And then
the main character, and I feel terrible about saying this. Like, I look at his design, and I feel like he's going to tell me that actually the Civil War was about states' rights.
He does kind of give that vibe.
But on the flip side, his concept art is fucking amazing. Oh my god, I love the pose in his concept art because it's like it goes a level beyond T posing. It's the A pose. He just has like that oh man, stance, I'm ready to go. Yeah. It is so I can't get over it. It's so funny.
All right. Since we're talking about him, I might as well read a snippet of his bio. His name is Raymond. He's a young man from the non-federated planet of Vergold. He is a captain of a merchant vessel. So that kind of explains like his history and his background. Non-federated, so that kind of immediately gives that he might not have some, great thoughts about the Federation and all that stuff. He does.
I have to admit, I do not like. I played for the Star Oceans. I don't know anything of the lore. Like, what is the lore? Anyone care?
Well, the thing about Star Ocean is that at least in 1 through 4, 3 maybe a little bit less because of its the way that its story ends up unfolding.
3 is the latest in the timeline, and we know what happens in 3.
Yeah,
yep.
It's just Star Ocean. I remember when I played 1 and 2 when they were re-released on PSP, that the setting ends up being like you're involved on the Federation, but then like in the first game, the involvement ends up being very thin. You spend up like 90% of it on one planet. And then the second game, you actually play as a character from the Federation in Claude, and you still spend up like 90% of the time on 2 planets, if I remember right. There's very little like, they say it's like it's a mix between sci-fi and fantasy, but it's like not an even split. It's always been like way more fantasy than sci-fi. I think 4 maybe struck a better balance, but then its story was also terrible. So did we actually win? I don't know.
So 2 points. One, it's so funny that Star Ocean is still like in this weird Street Fighter timeline where the latest in Street Fighter was Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, but then like its sequels are just like, people really didn't like the new cast from Street Fighter 3, so Street Fighter 4 chronologically takes place after 2, but not yet 3, and Street Fighter 5 is still after 4, but not yet 3. Like, they don't want to like inch closer to that, like, they don't want to go past whatever the fuck.
Well, there's also the whole like Star Ocean 3 twist that affects things.
Yep.
So
and
like, how do we build the story past this? You don't.
It's one of those things. It's like you either build past it somehow and use like the best creative minds you have on staff to somehow make it compelling, or you just reboot the whole thing and say, those didn't happen. No Star Ocean ever happened. 2, at least we got like a decent main character name this time around. Since 2, because 3 we got Fate Lion God, Fayt. 4, of course, we had Edge Maverick. And then Star Ocean,
Mega Man boss.
Star Ocean 5, we had Fidel Camus. And now we just have Raymond. Everybody loves
Raymond.
No. I didn't realize they didn't have a last name, or at least not yet. I don't know. I guess none of the characters have surnames. So,
Yeah.
Well, considering some of the ones they've come up with.
Oh boy, yeah. So at least we know.
I made a joke that his last name is gonna be something like Iconoclast. Raymond Iconoclast.
Oh shit!
It's gonna be something like that.
I'm scared now.
All right, so I'm going to go into the second character, and that's Letitia. She is basically this version of Rena from the second game, where she is the underdeveloped. She is the character from the underdeveloped planet that ends up running into Raymond, who is stranded on this planet of Aster 4. So she is.
By the
princess.
way, you were talking before about how these games are set up, and this game also seems to start with Raymond crash landing on an underdeveloped planet. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that premise, I think. And like that,
it's just on paper, it's just like it feels like it's going to be the same thing. Where it's like, are we going to spend how much of the time of the game are we going to spend on this underdeveloped planet?
I guess it's worth mentioning that this game, like one of the bullet points of this game, is like they're bringing back the dual story, like how Star Ocean 2 did it, where you can either choose Raymond or Letitia from the get go as your main character, like how Star Ocean 2 did it. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. That's kind of like a weird Star Ocean staple at this one. It's like, of course there's going to be an underdeveloped planet early on.
Yeah, it's just how much time will you end up spending on it? Is it going to be like a third of the game and then you access other planets? Because that, to me, like if there was like a game in my mind that I would like to play, that would be it. Where you start off on one planet, you end up like bringing like your crew and comrades and your party up to a spaceship, and then you visit like 2 or 3 or 4 more as the story unfolds. But
Brian, I have the game for you. It's called Guardians of the Galaxy.
God damn it.
Well,
but based on how a lot of the other games have gone, I'm totally expecting that you'll spend like the plurality of it, or
like the most game on
majority of it on Aster 4. But yeah, Letitia, her design is pretty unique. She wears like a full suit of armor with like a really wide kind of like dress attached to it, but very, very much kind of very much kind of identifying that she is a princess, from not basically the she is the Reyna to.
She's like a knight princess.
Yeah,
like archetype. It seems like.
So then I guess we have to get to the third character, which is Elena, who is a crew member of Raymond, and she is basically the hot one, or I guess that's the intent. Whether or not that actually comes through in the art, I think is really up to taste. I think that when you combine her design with when you combine Elena's design with Star Ocean's way that they model their characters, she really just kind of looks like a real doll, like just being animated.
Do you think this is how extreme they're gonna get with the design, or are they gonna have a Fior from Star Ocean 5? And if you don't remember,
it's not as outrageous as Fior. Like that isn't something.
Fior is the mage.
You could maybe argue not as unique, but still.
Yeah, Fior's the witch from Star Ocean 5, that the infamous checkerboard outfit, which is very something, all right, in the history of JRPG designs. She's definitely stands out.
Yeah, I think Elena's design is kind of dumb, but I get it. It's fine. I understand what it's going for. But then when you compound that with how the models look, I just think it looks really bad. But so do all the rest of them, I guess. So
it is cool that she uses a scythe, though. That's sick.
Yeah, well, doesn't she? Yeah, I was saying.
Was that a whip? Oh, yeah, the screenshot I'm looking at in the PlayStation blog looks like a scythe, but whip. Then.
And the last character is basically the counterpart to Elena. Who, if Elena is Raymond's close ally, then Albard is Letitia's close ally, and he is basically like a prototypical medieval mage. So he gets a couple lines in the trailer and a couple battle snippets. He's probably the most like straightforward and potentially boring as the other.
Honestly, his like model is probably like the best one. Like he's the one that looks the most
closest to his character design art. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you're not wrong. And I have a question about here. Do you think at some point in development, Raymond and Albard's names were switched, and then they were like, no, we should have a main character have like a good name this time around, so they switched it to Raymond and Albard? Do you think they had the?
It depends on what Raymond's last name is, if he has one.
Lion God.
That'll be the twist. Is he's like Fate's ancestor or something?
What if it is and we just guessed it?
So one other major component of this announcement trailer is that they did show a decent amount of both like combat gameplay and exploration gameplay. The exploration gameplay, I get what they're going for, but it almost looks, I don't know how to explain this. So basically, one of the tenets that they're trying to like market as a focus of this game is 3-dimensional traversal and exploration, where everything in sight is a field for adventure. Shows like these big, wide open areas, very like Blade X-esque. Even though I don't think it looks as nice. The art style is a bit muddy, and it shows the characters kind of like flying around, almost as if they're like in just the very generic Superman pose. Well, their arms are behind them, not in front of them, but it shows.
So the anthem pose.
The what pose?
Anthem pose.
Oh, yes, the anthem pose. Yeah, the jetpack pose. But it's very like mechanical, where it's like it shows him jumping off the ledge and then just like gets this blue aura around him, and then he just anthems around in a very straight line. And like it shows all the characters doing this. It shows not Elena. Well, maybe it shows her doing it too, but it shows Letitia doing this in like a futuristic city. I think the trailer might be trying to be a little bit deceptive here. It's hard to tell whether the battles are seamless or not. I don't know if the press release clarifies this.
The press release does say it's seamless.
Oh, it is seamless. Okay. I couldn't tell if they were doing like movie magic in the trailer or not, because he shows them flying into like this toad-like enemy and then starting to fight it, which the Star Ocean battle systems, at least I don't remember 3 that well, but I remember 2 and 4 being like they are admittedly really fun, and the reason why I played Star Ocean 4 to completion. So I don't really have any like.
So the best battle system in the series.
So here's directly from the press release: no random encounters. Players will seamlessly enter battles with enemies to populate the world.
All right, that legitimately sounds great.
There's also
wasn't 5 seamless though?
Yeah, it was seamless in 5 as well. I do remember that. It's weird. There's this little tidbit in the press release that says you also have to occasionally fly into waterfalls to cool your flight mechanic. Weird.
Oh no!
What?
It's a continuation of the anthem joke.
Oh, I was about to say, like, that was an anthem thing. That better not show up here. it's I guess it's kind of like I don't know how to say this, but I think that the seamless battle and the large vistas excite me more than the traversal specifics. The traversal I think actually looks really awkward. I don't know.
I'm glad that they confirmed PC for this game, because the optimization of that trailer was rough, and I get it. It's still baking in the oven, but it's just like one of those. It's like, man, I surely did upgrade to this expensive ass PC for Star Ocean, all right.
That's actually the reason why I haven't played 5 yet, because I remember when 5 came out, and I might get the timeline mixed up a little bit here, but 4 either just came out or was soon coming out on PC. And then 5, they were like asked about it, and they were like, "We'll consider putting it on PC." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll wait." And then it never happened.
And they considered it, and then they had it.
So that's why I hadn't played it yet, because I was waiting.
After they looked at the sales numbers, like, yeah, we sold like 100 copies. I guess it's not coming to PC then.
So would playing that on PlayStation 5 help at all? It's only on PS4, right? I'm talking about integrity and faithlessness.
I don't think Star Ocean 5 apparently had a lot of problems, but I don't know if performance was necessarily the biggest one.
There were definitely performance problems when you got like all your party members, and there were a lot of effects on screen. I don't know if like
it seems like there was more problems than just that.
Yeah, there's more problems. like the game kind of ended 20 hours too early, and there was no late game or no post game, so that was a problem of like, because when you go to Star Ocean and you're like but one of the big appeals of Star Ocean is it really usually has a robust post game. Like you have a shitload of things to do.
It's actually I don't know how to describe this quite right, but like one appeal to Star Ocean and kind of Tri-Ace more in general, like their games, like Star Ocean I wouldn't say is a great RPG series, like as a standardly constructed RPG, but they're kind of like, they're fun, like RPG mechanical playgrounds. And then like the post game especially gets really involved in like, there's a lot of crazy shit you can do with like the systems in place. Like for example, in Star Ocean 2, around the halfway point in the game, if you know how to mess with like the music crafting system, there's like all these weird mechanics that are like the personal actions. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And you can do like this artwork stuff and music stuff, and if you know what you're doing, you can get infinite money at like the midpoint in the game, and then you can like buy like ridiculous equipment. In Star Ocean 3, that crafting system is nuts. That you can like can break the game wide open if you know what you're doing. Star Ocean 4 is similar. I remember creating weapons in Star Ocean 4 where it's like, now I have a weapon that gives me like 4 times money on every battle, and now I'm like rich as fuck, and it also gives me like 10 times experience at the same time, and you can just do like really nutso stuff.
I remember like the weapon crafting like really ramps, where a lot of games it's like this weapon gives you plus 10% whatever attribute, where in Star Ocean games it's like I don't remember the details, but it's like you create 5 identical swords, meld them together, slot them with random shit from other crafts, and voila, your strength has quadrupled or something.
Yeah, it's not like crafting in most games where it's like you get a slight boost in strength.
Whatever.
You can like create weapons that are like, this is literally 5 times stronger than the normal weapon you can buy at this point.
Yeah, than the weapon you got out of the chest in the last dungeon or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts, the sort of stuff you can do in those games. And of course the gameplay itself is pretty good as well. I haven't played 5, so maybe it sucks in there, but
it sounds like we have homework. We can't leave Josh.
I'm going to play 5 before this releases. 5. I'm going to try it. I give up on it showing up on PC now. So
it's I still stand by like Star Ocean 3 Maria. If you properly kit her right, is like one of the most fun characters to ever play in a JRPG. Once you unlock full range mode in Star Ocean 3 and like do some crazy crafting shit with her attack modifiers, where she can just like solo all the post-game bosses. Oh, it's so good. It's so fun.
I know when I was talking about Arise very briefly, I was talking about like how I don't put that much weight on like character interactions, but I kind of hope like, please, one of these characters be good. Like, I don't think I've enjoyed a Star Ocean character since like, what's his name? The 2 dragon guy, Ashton. He was fun.
That's in 2.
He's fun. Yeah, he's fun.
But like Fate was boring. His girlfriend is boring. Edge sucks. Raimi is boring. Bacchus is boring. Lothar is boring. Miracle sucks. Sarah sucks. Limmel sucks.
They the whole roster.
Do you see Raymond's Chad pose in that artwork? He's going to be a great character.
I hope one of these characters please be good. Just please.
Well, I assume they haven't shown the full roster yet. It's just the initial 4. I wonder if they're gonna have like the what was it? I think Star Ocean 5 had like up to 6 characters in battle.
It wasn't. Yeah, Star Ocean 5. I think the whole cast participated in every battle. There was no reserve. So
who knows?
It sounds decent it sounds like kind of fun on paper, but
it's like, it could have been cool, but the rest of the game was like around it. So
I don't know if we ever said this game is coming to PlayStation, Xbox, and PC.
Yeah,
it's kind of everything but Switch. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's coming to last gen as well, but based on what we saw in the trailer, like some of the performance issues, especially flying around that city, it was just.
I can't wait to be disappointed.
I kind of feel like we're sounding pretty down on this, but going by recent history, can you blame us?
Look, I'm always willing to give Tri-Ace a shot, especially life after their Star Ocean mobile game. Well, let's see if all the money they made on that will paid off.
Oh, I actually didn't realize that this was in the at least in the PlayStation blog, is that Raymond is a captain of a merchant vessel. They basically run into a battleship, basically carrying one of the Kenny family, and Kenny is like a major family of the Federation. You play as one of the characters in 1, I believe. No, Claude as well. So 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
So
there's Ronix
in 1, Claude in 2.
So
just like Tails, they're going to try to get Star Ocean back on the right track.
Yeah,
it's not happening.
We can only hope.
Wow, Chow, you're not a believer.
We have to be.
My faith is shattered since 3. Okay.
Dang.
The concept art looks nice, but I guess I can't remember the last time. I remember the last time.
Akimon art looked nice. Look at Star Ocean 5's concept art. That looked nice.
When's the last time we saw a concept art and we were like, "This looks terrible"? I don't think it's ever happened.
The concept artists are pretty fucking good. Who would have thought?
In a completely other, I don't know. There is no segue for this. We're going to talk about Skyrim. At least a little bit. I don't know how you go from that to Skyrim. All right. Skyrim, I actually think is a pretty good game, but I played it 10 years ago because that's when it released. 10 years later, we've already announced and discussed on a previous episode of the podcast that Skyrim Anniversary Edition is releasing in like 2 weeks in early November. We just got a trailer that basically details exactly what comes in the Anniversary Edition, what is coming free for owners of the Special Edition, which came out in like 2016, and then as well as just other details about the Creation Club editions that are being bundled together for this version of the game. The highlight is that the owners of the existing Special Edition will get 4 free packs that are also included in the Anniversary Edition. They'll get the quest lines from Saints and Seducers, which is basically kind of like a mod expansion. They will get the survival mode, they will get fishing, and they will get like I forget what they call it, but additional like merchant interactions with Khajiit, with unique items and rare weapons and things like that. And then all those are also kind of combined into the Anniversary Edition, which packs in 500 other things. If you watch this trailer, they say the word content probably like 24 times.
Content.
Yeah. It feels very much like mid-2010s marketing, which maybe it's Skyrim that checks out. So I don't know how exciting this is. I think it looks nice.
It's a weird re-release. It's just like Skyrim Special Edition plus like paid mod bundle.
Whenever I see a game like this, when I'm kind of, first of all, I don't really have any interest in playing this just because like I've already had my Skyrim fill. I guess if you are like late to the party and you still really want to play Skyrim because it's going to be God knows how long until 6, then this might be a really easy recommendation. But whenever I see like a gold edition like this, or even like you even see this sometimes with just like vanilla publisher Game of the Year editions, where I'm wondering like you'll walk into a city in this version of the game, and then all of a sudden you'll be like inundated with like a main quest line, an expansion quest line, 2 mods, and then like basically you'll have like all this stuff that's just kind of like souped together, and you won't know like. Yeah,
much content.
Yeah, well, it's less about the volume, but more like something existed first. There was like a main storyline, which you might argue for Skyrim doesn't really matter. And then there was like, bespoke quest lines that, involve each region of the world or characters. But then on top of that, someone decided to mod in their own quest line. And then someone decided to like add a merchant. And then there's like the original gear. Like you don't really have a good feeling for like what was here first, what was added later. What is going to be more relevant to my like goal in the moment? Let's say I'm only 10 hours into the game. What's something I'll have to think about way later? Basically, when you tell me that there's over 500 unique pieces of content jammed in, like, does it feel basically like you're just swimming in a bunch of like stapled together different additions from different qualities of developers? I know they all kind of go through the Creation Club sort of like vetting or whatever, but it just feels like I don't know like how cohesive it would all end up being, or if it just ends up being like kitchen sink sort of stuff again.
But I guess part of the main appeal for this is like since it's getting a console release, like for people who probably never modded their game, that they only play on console, like they can now have access to this, and they've never played Skyrim before, so now they have all this. But I wonder if there's like a toggle in the menu. I forgot if there was. Like you can just like turn all that shit off and just play it without any notifications.
That's actually a great question. Where it's the way that this trailer is framed, it basically seems like you get 500 pieces of content. Enjoy, have fun, go have fun. But I don't know if there's like toggles you can choose, or it doesn't seem like it. Otherwise, I feel like they would have shown this, where you can choose like what's active or what's not. Like I guess I have a very PC mindset where I'm thinking like of a mod manager, where you enable and disable as you please, because some of them might be incompatible or whatever. You might just decide you don't want one. But it seems like here you kind of just get what you get. At least that's my impression.
Do you think this will be like good to go on launch day without you don't have to wait for any fixes? Everything's going to be in tip top shape.
No. And not,
by the way, we don't know a price yet.
Yeah, we still don't know a price. Yeah, I guess I just don't know who this is for, because either you've already played Skyrim or you haven't. And if you haven't, well, I guess maybe I just answered my question. This is for people who haven't played Skyrim but didn't want to in the last 10 years. I don't know. But I'm curious to see how well this does, because there's some people who might just like buy every version of Skyrim, and they've already dumped in 100 hours, and they just want a new tool. Well, maybe even 100 might be underselling it. I could maybe see like people who are more interested in just the art and craft of modding getting this game on PC just to start like messing with it, just to try to like tinker. Basically, they're not interested in the game so much, but just to tinker with it, which is still just as valid. So I wonder like how well this will do on PC, how well this would do on consoles. I'm interested in this in just kind of like a case study, almost like academically, like how well is this going to do? It's Skyrim, so it'll probably do very fine. But
if Resident Evil 4 can do it, then surely Skyrim.
If I had like a free extra month to dump into this, I'd play it, but I don't, so I probably won't. We did get a couple of other like smaller scale trailers for upcoming releases. Obviously, one of the big releases also coming up in November, actually the very next day, is Shin Megami Tensei 5. And we've already talked about the different trailers that they've shown for this game. The Atlus has been releasing like a Demon of the Day trailer like consistently for the last several months. But we got a World in Ruins trailer, and I know us talking over like different snippets of game footage might be a little bit weird. Just go watch the trailer. But I do think that this trailer 2 weeks out from release is kind of like the most comprehensive that I've seen. It does a good job establishing the setting, the tone, plenty of gameplay. It shows that it is very much not Persona. It is Shin Megami Tensei 5. If you haven't played one, I think watching this trailer, this is again the World in Ruins trailer, kind of shows all of the aspects that you would expect from this game. So it's very comprehensive, and I think like if you're going to watch one, this would probably be it. We talked about this a little bit of last time, where they did like a kind of like a pre-trailer, a sneak peek teaser of new Pokemon coming to Pokemon Legends Arceus. That was the form variants for Zoroa and Zoroark. And we just got a full trailer showing them in the game. Nothing too exciting. I do think that the I can't pronounce that name, Zoroark form that they show in Arceus is very like creepy looking. He's kind of like got white fur with like skin colored
There's a reason for that.
Oh, can you share, or is that not allowed?
I mean, it's not a spoiler. They've even outright said what the deal is. Basically, the Hisuian Zoroarks are ghosts, and they harbor a deep hatred for people because they're the reason they died.
Because they're very creepy looking. So I guess that's the intent. So good job. We did also, alongside, it was a pair of trailers, one for Pokemon Legend Arceus showing the Zoroa and Zoroark. But we also did get a new trailer showing off some characters and some gym leaders in Team Galactic from the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl remakes that are coming out also in November. I can't really muster up a ton of excitement for this. There
were some memes about like Cyrus is like supposed to be this imposing villain, but like in his like chibi form, he's like he's not angry, he's angy, you know. He's just like he's like mad, but he's like not very threatening.
Yeah, but this trailer is very vanilla. It first shows like two of the gym leaders, Volkner, and then one of the other ones I forget the name of. And then it shows like the Team Galactic members, Saturn, Jupiter, and whoever, and some Pokemon battles, which look like Pokemon battles. It's fine, I guess. There's nothing too much to latch onto there. And now we'll go into new release dates. And do we have any delays? Yeah, we do have a couple delays. So release dates and delays. Again, a lot of these are for next year, but there are a couple sneaking in for this year. And one of those is a launch date for the upcoming mobile game Tales of Luminaria. It is releasing on November 4th for iOS and Android. We did talk about this game. Did I say something?
Oh boy.
Oh
no!
I'm so used to whenever Josh starts talking, I'm like, crap! I just said something wrong, and he's
no, you're right. You're right, Brian. You're never wrong.
I have never gotten anything wrong on this. I couldn't even remember Labyrinth of Yomi's full title earlier. But yeah, we talked about Tales of Luminaria earlier about how it's an original story, how it's focusing on a large roster of 21 characters. And they've been going through those. Well, I think they finished their roundup of all the different characters and all the different motivations.
Yeah, but they did a Q&A session like YouTube video that answered a lot of questions, valuable questions about this game. Obviously, if you haven't heard yet, of course, it is a gacha game. But then people are like, what's the gacha system? Do you have to roll for characters? It's like, no, you obtain all those 21 characters by playing through the story. It launches with like 7, I think, and then they'll add a new character like weekly, as you play through the story and whatnot for them to obtain them. But the gacha system will have costumes, weapons, and accessories for all of those 21 characters. So obviously, things to help you out, deal damage in battle, and whatnot. And whatever defensive things you'll get from the accessories. And then they also said that there's also a chance that mystic arts could be included in the costumes and arts and weapons that you pull. So you're basically pulling for your arsenal, your attacks in the game through their gacha system. But the representative in that Q&A session, I reassured that the content of the game won't be too difficult. You won't have to, they want to emphasize that you won't have to pay to win for this game. But we'll see how much that ages. The big thing that caught people off guard with this Q&A stream is that they confirmed that there will be no Japanese voices in the English release. It will not support dual audio for this mobile game. Even though they've done it with previous mobile games and obviously with their mainline games. The most absurd thing they said was, if you want Japanese voices in the English release, raise your voice and we'll consider it. Pretty much make yourself heard. If there's enough comments to warrant adding Japanese to the English release, they'll consider it. It just... What? Yeah. What are you doing? What is this? Why would you say this pre-release? it's...
I just think it's a little bit weird where for a couple of reasons. One, if this was maybe like a small like boutique publisher that maybe didn't have the resources in place to like pull this off, like maybe it would be more like, you know, understandable. Like this is Bandai Namco. Like shouldn't you have, and you have in the past, like the pipeline in place to coordinate voice contracts or whatever it is to get, you know, to have, you know, languages available in various regions for like a mobile game, which mobile games are played by a lot of players who are really into like Japanese games and anime and things like that. So
especially the Tales audience too.
Yeah,
like,
so it's like those people are more like are going to be more likely to want Japanese voices. I'm not saying everyone does, but there's going to be certainly people that do. And so it's just kind of like
it's like we know you're going to be angry.
This feels
so
like a conscious.
How angry you are.
This feels like a conscious omission of it, rather than, you know, like we couldn't do it. I mean, I know they say in the video like we just couldn't do it. It's kind of like that's weird because you've been able to.
It's like we couldn't do it on our shoestring budget or something. I don't know.
It's one of those weird things where like I was like, okay, I understand if there were hurdles, like fine, but then they had to like add on the fact that like, oh, but if there's enough comments to warrant adding it, we'll consider it. It's like that's the thing that really like it's like, wait, what? Like if you, it almost feels like that like you had like the thing like theoretically you had things in place to do it, and now you're just like trying to like convince someone to let you do it. And it's like weird, very weird. So I don't know. It already seems like a shit show from the way like, you know, that Q&A session was handled. I at least admire that, you know, they were at least frank about it, but I don't know. Maybe I'll go check it out just to be like I have to know, but at the same time it's like it feels...
One part of me is like, okay, this isn't a crossover game. Like if it's a crossover of existing Tales properties, like a lot of the other mobile games have involved, I've just been like not interested. And this is okay, this isn't that, but also I tried to get into the gacha stuff a little bit with Nier, and it really kind of burned me a bit. So I'm kind of like, maybe I'll just see how other impressions are of Tales of Luminaria before
You're
I
asking
decide.
me to do it. Just say it.
Well, I'm not asking you to do it. I'm expecting that you already will be doing it.
I'm expecting you. Wow, holy shit.
If you were to come in and be like, I have no interest in this game, I'd be like, wait, what? Who are you and what have you done?
Yeah, it's just a thing that's like, it's like a free space on a bingo card. Like, he will try this mobile game.
Yeah, he will at least for about a week. I expect the Mobage channel on our Discord to have plenty of Tales of Luminaria discussion spearheaded by Josh, and then he will make a decision.
Dang.
No, this is
I know.
I mean this only with positive thoughts.
Yeah, me and Gacha only positive.
I trust you completely. If you tell me that this game is actually like really, really good, I will try it.
Well, you said it now. It's said publicly. So
hey, I tried.
No matter if it's good or bad.
Yeah,
even if it's utterly shit, like Brian, it's like so good.
We haven't talked about Nier Reincarnation in a while. I found that game really boring, and I haven't played it in like 2 months. So
yeah, I have. I dropped it like maybe a month and a half ago, or a month ago. I just like I couldn't keep up with it anymore. It's become once a game becomes a chore for me, I'm just like,
I'm done.
Yeah.
Here's another November release. I guess it's the day before Skyrim, 2 days before Shin Megami Tensei 5. So November is going to be pretty packed. Finally, we have a release date for Final Fantasy V Pixel Remaster. So I know a lot of people in the RPG site Discord, both on staff and other general members, have been really excited and eager and anticipating Final Fantasy V as their kind of like dark sheep favorites from that trilogy of games 4, 5, and 6. I believe it's Adam's favorite of the set. I don't want to put words in his mouth though. So
yeah,
yay, I got it right. See, never wrong. But finally got a release date. Final Fantasy V. We'll be able to replay it in pixel remaster form on November 10th. If you've played the other pixel remasters, you kind of know what to expect. I presume that there's some plans in place to put up some guide content for it. I know it's an older game, but some people like to revisit these just with some hand holding or whatever. So you might see some of those features go up on the site, but really cool reason to revisit that.
Finally, a good Final Fantasy is coming out.
Yes. Again, though, it is only on PC and mobile for now, so no movement on a console release.
Just get a Steam Deck.
Here's another kind of a surprising release, also coming to PC, at least in Japan, and that is a PC port of The Legend of Nayuta Boundless Trails. It is releasing on December 10th for Japanese audiences. Now, this game we did talk about when Nice America basically outlined their future plans for English adaptations for outstanding games in the Kiseki series. We know we're looking ahead to the Crossbell duology starting next year, and then Trails in Reverie following that. So looking out several years for some of those games. Included in that was a localization effort for The Legend of Nayuta Boundless Trails. But ahead of the English release that is a few years away, it will also release on PC. It is being released by the same company that has handled several games in the series recently, and that's PH3, headed up by Durante. So his group always does excellent work, so this will probably be a fantastic PC port. And maybe James can elucidate on this, but there's already an English fan translation that exists for the PSP version of the game. Is that correct?
It's basically like machine translated almost.
Oh, so
like it isn't machine translated, but it was like the first translation effort that the original group that did the Zero translation did. So they got better as they went on. So a lot of people are like, okay, Nayuta, just completely ignore it. Zero is pretty bad. It's doable, but it's pretty bad. And then Azure, even before GeoFront did their patch, it's like, okay, yeah, this is not ideal, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's in English. So I just saw some people commenting when this PC port for Japanese audience was announced, like, well, someone will put the existing fan translation on it for sure. Like maybe they will.
And the funny thing about that is that unlike the Reverie, the Hajimari thing that happened a few weeks ago, where some really, really dumb group was like, we're going to take the spreadsheet translation and insert it in the Clouded Leopard PC version. And it's like, well, of course that's going to get DMCA'd and it like cease and desisted because, well, this game's been announced for localization. I do wonder what will happen here, because it sounds like what they're going to do is that even if you're in the West, you'll be able to buy the Japanese version of Nayuta early. So you just have it before the translation patch comes in, because it's the same depot.
It's the same product number. On
And
Steam,
I remember
right?
we were kind of confused on that because we were looking at English, Japanese like language listings for text and audio for the upcoming Zero, Azure, and Reverie. And then Nayuta, if I remember right, it only said Japanese for both. Despite this being in a localization announcement, we're like, wait, what does that mean? And it's because the PC release coming in 2 months is a Japanese only release. So I guess they'll just update it once the localization comes through. And again, to remind myself and the audience of dates, Trails from Zero is the English official release for that is listed for fall of 2022, and the rest the next year. So 2023 for English, for expecting an English date for anything that's not Trails from Zero.
It is.
By the way, Nayuta is the as for right now anyway spinoff, right?
Yeah.
I know people are like, what happens if they make it canon, like after the fact?
It's whatever Kondo wants, dude. He can at any time he can just be like, this is canon.
Yeah. Like, actually, this happened on a different continent, like in this universe.
All we can say right now about Nayuta is that we can't be sure it won't be canon, so play it anyways.
I part of me is cynical, and people just like want stuff to be canon just because they're obsessed with canon. It's like, shut up, let it be a spin-off.
I do kind of agree with that. Like, it's a spin-off, so therefore it's less important. It's like, well, what if it does something really interesting with like its characters or its story?
Nayuta is awesome. I really like the PSP game, so I mean, it's a fun time. Like, you just separate from everything.
I wonder if we could request a review copy of this.
Yeah, this is really weird because this press release was sent out by Nice America themselves to promote, on behalf of Falcom, the PC release in Japan.
I mean, hey, I'm on a kick for like writing about Japanese Trails games.
Like, there's such a weird like tangled web because this is separate from like the Clouded Leopard like ports of like Hajimari. Like, this is actually handled by Durante's team themselves. Like, so
I saw people wondering, like, why did NIS America announce this? And they were, like, honestly, legitimately confused. And the answer to that is because they're the ones coordinating the PC port with PH3.
So like this is not like this is a separate deal from like Clouded Leopard doing like the Hajimari, like PC release and whatnot, because they use their own like internal porting.
And Hajimari, like on Steam, it has 2 listings. There's Hajimari no Kiseki, which is the Asian listing, and then there's Trails into Reverie, which is the NIS America listing coming in 2023. Whereas this one, I think it's just the one, right, for Nayuta, because there is no Clouded Leopard one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, I think actually part of the reason why Nisa might be doing this is because they want to avoid a situation like what they now have of Hajimari, where it's like, oh, there's going to be 2 on Steam, basically forever.
Well, isn't that the case with Cold Steel even now?
Yeah,
there's like the XE ports and then the Clouded Leopard ports. So
so if they get this out now, it's like, well, Clouded Leopard has less of a reason to push their version on Steam because it's like, well, there's already a Japanese version on Steam.
Well, it just depends on agreements too. Like that's not necessarily NIS America's call, more so than like how did the contracts between Falcom work out between Clouded Leopard and NIS America. And just like it's not like more so. It's more so what was agreed upon. Like maybe Clouded Leopard's like a contract with Falcom was like you can only do Cold Steel, and like that's the boundaries of our contract. So it is still a weird situation. People can still accidentally buy Hajimari and the wrong Cold Steel on Steam and be like, why is it in English? It's like, oh well, at least you have a refund system. So.
And speaking of the Kiseki series, I do know that on previous podcasts, James has been talking about his experience with Kuro no Kiseki, the most recent game in the series that does not have any official localization announcement. And if it did, it would be obviously 2024 or later. It did get a recent update for its console release in Japan, which I guess I'll just let James speak to this because I don't know specifically how the game was before and after this major update to the game.
Okay. To put it as simply as possible, the game was finished, air quotes, at launch, but this is the patch that's like, okay, the game is actually finished with everything that they wanted in the game at launch. Because the content's the same, but a few cutscenes that were previously like kind of like the older static animation style from Cold Steel 1 through 4 are replaced with newer animations that are like the mocap stuff from Hajimari / Reverie, and the frame rate was doubled, so now it's up to 60 FPS. The load times are a lot better because they're already kind of iffy even on PS5, and a bunch of quality of life features were added. There was some new additions for quartz assignments so that you can auto insert the higher level of a specific quartz using it like an autofill. You can skip S-craft animations and arts animations
that's
now.
The big one, to be honest, on this patch. Like that's the most important one of this patch.
Yeah, not even that, not even just that, but they improved Van's S-craft animation. Before it was kind of just Now it's actually really badass because they improved the animations and added a bit more flourishes, and it's like, this is actually really.
Are you talking about like the one where he does a lot of punches, or the one in Gretel mode?
The one where he does a lot of punches. The one in Gretel mode was already fine, I feel like. Yeah. Basically, now he does kind of like a double palm like strike, and then backflips to grab his stun caliber.
Oh dang, that's fucking fancy then.
Good thing I'm not early adopter.
Yeah, well, you still need to play Hajimari, Chow. So don't
no, I'm
worry.
skipping.
No, I refuse.
We know Chow will just watch it on YouTube. That's what he does.
No. Like, even Josh will back me up here. You're already invested in Trails. Do not skip Hajimari.
If you're already invested in the Trails storyline, you can't skip Hajimari for Kuro if you want to understand anything. If you're fine not understanding shit, then that's fine. If you want to take it as its own game, but
I'll tell you a dirty secret. I beat 0 before I beat the third. How's that?
That's fine, to be honest. That's not a big deal.
Hajimari is way more important for Kuro than the third is to Zero.
Yeah, they're just like entire like plot threads.
Okay, I'll do it.
And Hajimari's good, Chow. You'll have a good time.
Yeah, Hajimari's a pretty solid game.
You don't have to do a guide.
Yeah.
Well,
not yet, anyways.
Not yet.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I signed up for these things, but hey, it comes out 3 years later. I could just take my sweet time.
But anyways, I think the most like interesting thing that they added in this patch is that there is a scene like at the very end of the game where throughout the game there's these sections where you'll get into Van's truck and there will be like a montage of going like cross country or exploring, and it'll have like this kind of like line showcasing where his truck's going, and then there will be these like CGs showcasing what's happened at these points. Just kind of like a time lapse thing, kind of cute. There's a moment in the final chapter where you do it with a certain character, and they don't show that in the launch version of the game. It's just like kind of a fade to black. They added in one of those sections with the time lapse with the latest patch, and there's like a bunch of like new CGs, including one of a certain character eating a taco.
Oh, okay, yeah. Damn, that's okay. Damn, I should fucking.
Yeah, basically it, and the funniest thing about this is that I put 120 hours in this game. As soon as I fucking finished, they add in the patch that doubles the frame rate and let we skip S-crafts.
Yeah, dude, I don't know why you fucking go
that's what you get
much anymore. Yeah, don't ever buy games at launch. That's the
and
big,
then I know no one cares about this, but a very similar patch happened with Pathfinder, where it's like, here's our first major patch. I'm like, God damn it.
Oh yeah, right after you finish your review and done with the game. Yeah,
it was actually the same. The Kuro update 1.1, Pathfinder update 1.1. Like I waited. I did not release my review on not to usurp your conversation, but just similar sort of thing where it's like, here's my review or here's my impressions, whether it's in a podcast form or whatever, and like we've just made everything like all half your complaints we've addressed. Like, damn it.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird because like I'm obviously gonna write impressions for Kuro. I mean, kind of like Hajimari, it's gonna basically be a review in all but name, which is fine. But it's weird because I already liked it a lot. It's my favorite Trails game now, which I never thought I'd say that, like not in a million years. And that was with the caveat of this could run better. The load times could be better. There could be some quality of life features. I would really like to be able to skip S-crafts and arts animations. And it's like, well, all of that's fixed. I didn't get to experience it, but I was able to hop back in and see, yeah, that's the case. It's running a lot smoother. The load times are better. The quality of life features work. It's like, man.
Let me tell you how many times I saw Agnes summoning a meteor from orbit, and oh my god, that animation just burned into my mind now. It was used so many times when my friends played through. I'm like, yep. Yeah,
well, I always play these games on PC, so like all the S-crafts, like I'm used to watching them with the turbo mode engaged, and I guess the turbo mode, I think on some of the releases now comes, at least on the North America releases, comes on the console versions, maybe. But whenever I have to watch them at like normal speed, I'm like, why?
Yep.
Why is it so slow?
There was no turbo mode here, so it was all at regular speed.
I will say this though, and maybe this will sound weird, but I feel like, especially Cold Steel 1 through 4, when you saw your character's attack without turbo mode, it felt like it was way too slow. Like it didn't feel like there was any weight behind it. But I do feel like Kuro has been better about that in the sense that even without turbo being in the game, the attack animations feel better. I'm not sure if Josh gets what I mean.
They're more impactful for sure. Yeah. There's like a bit of weight behind them.
And now we're going to go on to a few delays and announcements for release dates for next year. The first one was one that we basically was already all but confirmed, and that is that Digimon Survive is officially delayed to next year. We already had kind of knew this from Toei Animation financials from earlier this summer, but now this is from the horse's mouth, from Bandai Namco's mouth. So Digimon Survive was originally scheduled for 2018. clearly having a bit of a troubled development. I think we're all in the same boat. We're going to be saying, take your time, do what you need to. It's officially been delayed to 2022. So they're using that to enhance. They're using the extra time to enhance the quality of the game. The development team is working as hard as they can. They ask for our patience. So
is it going to be like Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics?
I understand what you're referencing, but I don't know why.
It's a strategy.
You're talking about how all strategy RPGs
okay,
are one either that or the other.
They're clearly delaying it to make it more like Super Robot Wars 30.
Ooh, okay, all right. You take all the time you need. I don't care if it's 2030 then.
Yep. So nothing really much more to say here. You could probably dial back 12 months and hear us talking about the delay into 2021. So yeah, take your time, team at Bandai Namco. So we will be patient. A couple other releases. Here's another one that is releasing in January, which is a month that we kind of have identified as maybe a potentially very thin month, a backlog month. But Weird West, which is a game from Devolver Digital and Wolf-Eye Studios, will release on January 11th, 2022 for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. This is an isometric RPG that reminds me actually a lot of the marketing from Wasteland, only with more of a clearly like American West setting. If you remember the talk about Wasteland 3, it was like, I thought the marketing of that was like really dry and uninteresting, but I ended up liking the game. And so here I'm kind of in the same boat where I look at this trailer for Weird West and I'm like, this looks really dry and uninteresting, but maybe I just got to bite the bullet in January and try it. And maybe there's something really neat underneath. So
look, I'm a sucker for Western games. So it having like kind of like this weird, like supernatural take on the Wild West really makes me interested just in the setting. I don't know how the actual game's going to play out, but that alone is like, okay, all right.
I need to like refresh myself on how exactly the game works, but you have like 5 different characters and you pick one, and it's something like if you die as one of those characters, you like will swap to a different one, or I need to double check. It's something like that. And how there's like multiple characters and how they interact is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's one of the bullet points like in the key features is like discover the world through the origin stories of different characters, moving from one character's journey to the next until they all converge in a final chapter. So it's sort of like live a life, I guess. And I guess Octopath to a certain extent, even though that final thing was like super missable and not really,
Yeah, the gameplay doesn't really seem like Wasteland 3, but the art style and the UI and the perspective just really gives me Wasteland 3 vibes. Maybe I'm like that crappy tweet where it's like I get Boss Baby vibes from this movie because I haven't seen anything else. But like I played Wasteland 3 not too long ago, and I guess that's what my brain just keeps going to when I see like how the menus look on this, how the combat looks. It's not quite so XCOM-y. It looks like it takes place more in real time. But depending on how January looks and whether or not I'm using that time to play something like Skyrim or Cold Steel 4, maybe I'll slot some space for this just to be adventurous. And even though the marketing I think is kind of dry, maybe there's a diamond in the rough here. Here's another release for February, and that is Maglam Lord. So we talked about this game as it led up to the release earlier this year in Japan. It released in Japan this March. It's releasing for us in the West on February 4th, 2022 for Switch and PS4. Basically, this seems like a JRPG / dating sim sort of game, with the big hook being that you are a demon lord and you are the last of your kind. So you need to find a partner in order to preserve your demon race. That's effectively what I'm getting from the P-Cube trailer for the localization announcement. So kind of a fun concept. Not sure it's one that I'm personally interested in, but it's something different, something unique. I'm not sure if anyone here had a lot of interest in the Japanese release or in the upcoming localized release, but it'll be for early next February.
All I remember about the footage of it, gameplay footage, is like the battles look like they take place like on a horizontal 2D plane, like really old Tales games.
So this series is basically like, or this game I should say, is basically not Summon Night. It's got the Summon Night writer. It's developed by Felistella, who made Summon Night 5, not 6 though. It's got the same kind of gameplay concept, or I should say game concept, as Summon Night. And then the gameplay looks like the Swordcraft story games, which are the Summonite GBA spin-offs, which is the side-scroller action RPG thing. So it feels like that's kind of what this is meant to be. Like, no one's making Summon Night right now, so we're gonna make not Summon Night.
I do like how one of the bullets here is 20 plus DLC packs with contents from franchises such as the Tales of series.
Yeah,
oh boy, I'm just like, that's a weird thing to market, but sure.
The game itself, I almost feel like it doesn't like to show this, but the game itself has this sort of like chibi, like models art style, and I don't know, it's kind of like.
And the one thing that's kind of interesting, or I thought was weird about the way that the trailer is formed, is like it's showing all the different characters because you're supposed to try to find one that you're like building relationships with the dating sim elements. And it like pans over like the characters' chests for some reason in this art, and it's just like
that's the most appealing part, right?
Yeah, but whether
gender.
it's either gender, regardless of what they're wearing, it's just like here's a little, this is what their face looks like, and here's what their chest looks like. It's like, okay, these are the two most important factors apparently in my dating decisions.
I love the character design that is like this old demon dude in a Hawaiian shirt with a necklace saying marriage.
He's apparently the hitch guy, you know, just like, I will help you with your relationships. So okay.
Yeah, it seems like a fun concept. We'll see if I don't know what our coverage plans are, but we'll see if we can get one of our writers interested to cover that in February. A couple other news bits to round out the end of the cast. We do have a sales update for a game that I brought up previously here on this podcast. That's Tales of Arise. It celebrates its 1.5 million sales milestone. Pretty big milestone for the series. It's quickly climbing the ranks. Isn't the cap like Vesperia at 2-point-something million? What's the high water mark?
I need to look this up.
Yeah, I forgot already.
But I know like Symphonia is the best in the West.
I remember from this news bit, it's like since they use Rinwell and Law to commemorate the 1.5 million. I think they said they'll have a new artwork for Dohalim and Kisara if they reach, I think, like 2 million. I think I forgot what they said exactly.
Well, I think we got the Alpha and Shion at 1 million, and we got the Law Rinwell 1.5. So even if they didn't say it outright,
but obviously they're trying to incentivize sales. They're like, if you really want new artwork for them.
Wow, that's a lot of sales to get new art.
Just buy 9 other copies if you already have the same one. Come on, Chow.
I think we kind of all predicted that this would be the best-selling game, and it seems like it's well on its way. It's not quite there yet. It didn't immediately blow the lids off, but it looks like Vesperia topped out at 2.8 million. So
it seems like that 2.88 is the highest in the series, and that's including like the original release and the remaster altogether.
So that might not be a complete one-to-one.
So it's like not really fair because it's gotten multiple versions. So
yeah,
but still, that's the higher watermark at the moment.
It's okay, but when they re-release Arise like in 7 years, then it can compete.
Yep.
And the last piece of news that we have is that longtime Atlus composer Shoji Meguro is leaving to become an independent contractor who will still work with the company upon that decision.
So it already happened.
Yeah, it already happened end of September.
Oh, okay. So he will. So he's a freelancer now. He will be working with Atlus for their future projects, and some of those. This is the date that I was thinking of. Some of those future projects will be announced on November 6th. I can't think of a specific example, but I do know that I've seen other composers basically take the same route, where they no longer work for underneath one specific developer or publisher, but they'll just go freelance and then just contract back to the same publisher. So I don't know.
Pretty common. Like Shimamura is not a Square Enix employee, for instance, and neither is like Kenji Ito.
Yeah. So, also like composers like Yuki Kajiura now, like after the fallout of Calafina, I think she's freelancing these days.
Sakamoto, even though he doesn't do much composing himself anymore, his company does.
The coolest thing about this is Meguro is going under the pseudonym Mega Rock now.
Mega Rock.
Hell yeah.
It's kind of funny. I guess this shows you like my tastes both in music and in games. Like when I think of Meguro, I still think of like Digital Devil Saga.
Me too.
Everyone's thinking like Persona, and I'm like, Digital Devil Saga, guys. What about that?
I think of like the fucking grungy, like lone guitar string type of approach that Meguro does in those games.
Mm-hmm.
Like the really low key ones.
One thing I did think that was interesting from this announcement is that it was made from, or originally from, Atlus themselves, which I thought was just kind of like, at least my reading of it is that that's really like a sign of respect. Like they didn't have to do that, but they did. So I just thought that was, just kind of a cool footnote for how this announcement came to be. It wasn't announced from Meguro or from how his freelance framework, but from Atlus, saying that they're still planning to work with him in the future, but he is going to be a freelancer. So he's been with Atlus since 1995.
Yeah, it's been hell a long time. That's awesome that we'll get to hear more Meguro stuff outside of the Atlus scope, though. Like, he is such a talented composer. Like,
Meguro compose a Square Enix game. Do it.
Dude, what if he collabs with like someone like Okabe for a game? Oh, ooh. But
here, just because I think this context is good, I'm going to read a little bit from a girl's statement. I won't read the whole thing.
Yeah.
But he said, I decided to leave Atlus and focus on my dreams of developing indie games. However, I will continue to maintain a good relationship with Atlus. While I'm focusing on my own indie game development, I will continue to work with Atlus on my game music. So I hope those of you who are concerned about the sudden announcement will feel relieved. So it sounds like in terms of like, if you really enjoy Meguro's work, in the places that his work currently is, like that, like the status quo doesn't seem to be shifting that much, which is, I think, something that we've seen with other composers as they've gone freelance. Like this is a very niche example, but something similar happened with ArenaNet, where they did have a couple composers that were under their employ who then left the company, but would just come back to freelance for them anyway. And basically meant nothing changed, at least, in terms of the output that we would receive. So hopefully it ends up being kind of the same thing here with the additional boon that you get to see Meguro's work on independent projects or potentially for other publishers. So the sky's the limit.
Yeah, best of luck. The dude deserves all the praise he can. Like he's earned it.
Mm-hmm. And that covers us for this episode of the podcast. So our two major talks were about Super Robot Wars and the unexpected Star Ocean sequel announcement. I don't know if you ever said this during Star Ocean, but in Japan, it is still officially titled Star Ocean 6. But they just similar to Star Ocean 5 and similar to like Yakuza series, they've just decided to drop the numbering here. For the Western release.
Western players are just probably just more concerned. Like, can I start with this? If it's called 6, then I can't.
Yeah, I wonder like how people take to like Super Robot Wars 30. When they see the number, it's like, wait, what the fuck?
Yeah, you got to play the 29 other games first.
Yeah, sorry, this is just how it is.
Yep, and we got the 2 reviews up on the site, one for Guardians of the Galaxy and one for my Pathfinder review from earlier this week. We'll have a couple more coming up in the upcoming weeks. We have some team members on staff that are currently in the process of getting some other reviews ready for you guys. We do also have Josh's fun little like what if list for future Super Robot Wars games. All the news about all the dates we do try to keep up to date in our game database, as well as our RPG lists for 2021 and 2022 that Adam keeps up to date on. And all the other news, of course, obviously is all up on the site. You can join our Discord by going to rpgsite.net and clicking on the link at the top of the homepage. I think it also is just discord.gg/RPG site. We also are on all the social media platforms, so search for RPG site on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, and we'll be there. And we'll be back. We will be back next week with another edition of this podcast. So thank you so much for listening. Until next week, stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you then.
Gundams are real.